There's a group of people in Malaysia right now that are trying to distract us. They're making us fear each other. They're trying to divide us. They're constantly lying to us, telling that Christians are attacking Islam, or they say things that the Chinese are going to take over. That's not true. The Chinese are not going to take over. No one told me. Okay? What a stupid attack plan that is. All the Chinese going, Chong ah! I'll be like, Messi. No one's attacking anybody, okay? But these people make up such stupid shit stories because they want to distract us.
It's a worrying time now.
If we go like this, if we keep going down this path,
if we're too distracted, fearing each other and being scared of each other.
I think there's a lot of knee-jerk kind of reaction to things. There's a lot of taking things out of context.
If things continue the way they continue,
they don't look like it's going to a good place.
I probably would really like to see it from another country. In other words, I'd be there.
It's because I'm patriotic and I love my country, but still at the same time I love my family more. So chances are, rather than stand and fight, I'd probably pack up and leave.
But I really don't want to leave. This is my home. I mean.
when you go abroad, you go abroad and you're somewhere far away from Malaysia and you're just feeling all happy and light and lovely about the country. What is that Malaysia? What is that Malaysia?
I was born in KL. I've lived here most of my life. I went to school here, I went to school in the States for a little while, and I came back about 8 years ago. Most of my jobs have been in politics, civil society. I write mostly on political issues, social issues, some human rights stuff. In 2007, I was arrested because of a comment that appeared on my blog, so I was held here for 4 days. It was quite an experience, but the most moving thing about it was the outpouring of support. There were people who came and stood outside, every night for 4 nights. Activists, people who work in NGOs, and they really come out for one another. They stand up for one another. And
I'm a comedian. I dabble in a bit of music and acting and script writing, but mainly it's comedies. And I like standing next to art. Satire was created back then to highlight what was going on with your leaders to the people, to keep the leaders in check.
I saw Douglas' stuff and I just fell in love with it. Because in many ways, he's saying what I'm trying to paint. Hi, I'm Anurendra and I'm an artist. I eat too much and I have 2 dogs. I'd hate to think that my aesthetic and the themes in my work are negative. They're often misconstrued that way, I think. But I think they're actually very positive and they're very inclusive.
Anurendra, in fact, that's one of his catalogues there. He's an artist I really do admire. I think his work is beautiful. I'm an actor, I'm a writer, I'm a director. I'm the artistic director of the Instant Cafe Theatre Company, which has been around since 1989.
Jo Kukatas is an amazing person. She has so much charisma, so much passion, and I wish I could even be a quarter of her.
She herself, of course, is a very compelling performer. She's very watchable. She's not afraid to create strange shapes with her body.
I'm a performing artist. People call me Sue most of the time, and I actually do a lot of teaching, but I'm a dancer by profession.
Russell can sing, and he's very jolly.
I have currently released 2 singles and I'm about to release my debut album. How did I get started in this business? Well, to be very honest, this business and this medium sort of chose me. Asian family, Asian mentality. Music is not a profession.
So I didn't really believe in myself that I wanted to dance as a career. I'm like, no way, everyone is doing a 9-to-5 job and then dance. That was my mind.
My ambition from the time I was small was I thought I'd be a writer. Then in my 20s, I thought I really couldn't write to save my life.
My dad was in the Air Force. He lived in a very heightened reality. My dad, yes, yes, no, no, jump how high, yes, no, sir, 3 bags full. When you're fighting communists, you don't really have time to be funny. If a superior tells you to sit down, you sit down. There might be a bullet that's coming your way. Maybe that was a way for me to escape, as in comedy, being funny.
I think going to the audition for a play in Malaysia was a place that allowed me to feel like I belonged to the country. Because I've been living outside the country such a long time, and I think the theatre is a place for people who feel a bit alienated from their society. They find a kind of place for themselves there, where people on the margins, I think as many of us are really, the margins accept you.
Making art gave me a chance to express that, to express the world we live in and how we are shaped, the lessons of history. So I think it's a wonderful medium, and as I said, I have a deep appreciation for beautiful things.
I think artists need to be more confident and brave in terms of speaking out their minds, to encourage more people to be an example, a good example, not just to the nation, but to other emerging artists.
In many ways, we've forgotten how to talk directly to each other. We're always talking through newspapers or through politicians or things like that.
Sometimes it's all about ego, sometimes people are writing, just to rant and rave and, to sort of like blow off steam and things like that, which is they're right, of course, but you have to think sometimes about whether, what you're writing is for self-gratification or whether it's really trying to further a cause that you believe in.
You're not telling off the government, but you're saying, well, if you look at this, then what you're saying is nonsense. You have to be very careful about doing satire or, doing this kind of political comedy, not for any repercussions, but rather that it can affect you. You become maybe a bit jaded, a bit cynical. Although when we first started, everybody said it won't last. Malaysians don't like to laugh. Strange thought. And that this kind of comedy wouldn't be allowed.
We are in a country that still seems to frown on such practices, where you cannot criticize, or you shouldn't, that is rude, and to some people that it is treason.
If you misbehave, right, you can go and live somewhere else. We will take away the stake you have in our country. But the whole idea of being a citizen, as far as I can see, is to question the way things are in the hope of a greater good, right? I mean, whenever I make a work and people take it to heart, I always say, well, it's not only about you, it's about the whole world we live in. It's not just us, right?
But we're Malaysian, we can't help but politicize everything, right?
Yeah, the whole mamak stall politics is part of our DNA. We are very bankrupt of heroes. Firstly, we are very cynical. Secondly, the quality of heroes also, not like before lah. It's a much more difficult, complex world. I want to make these t-shirts with Mate's face on it that says, "Miss me now." Right? Because it's true, man. I can't remember. I always think like, were things really that bad? Whether it is in the people we know here and now, or whether it is in old mythologies that we use from Garuda to the angel Gabriel, we're constantly looking for heroes. We're looking to be inspired.
If we have as a creative force, as a driving force in this country, our sense of being powerless, does that help to create some of that work? Has that been an impetus? That trying to talk to the void, trying to talk to the abyss, because you want to say, well, I don't like this feeling of being powerless, so I'm going to say something, I'm going to do something.
I really hate, what really gets my goat is people feeling powerless when they are not. This to me is my social-political issue. It's like a lot of people sitting around asking, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? We all put all our hopes and dreams, GE, general election, we'll do it this time, inni kalilah. And then it falls through, and then we're like, and you see that in the unity that you saw going into that start to crumble.
Oh, immediately, yeah.
And people start biting one another, climbing on top of each other, trying to get up, right? Yeah, so it's all sorts of mess, right? We always wait for heroes to save us. We must have Anwar because, then that he is the one who will lead us out of this wilderness, like Moses in the desert, right? But I think that's also a fallacy. Trying that is difficult, but trying to get people to believe and understand that they are the heroes. You are the hero, we are the hero. I mean, it's not as difficult as you think.
This is the first birthday rally, I think it was. And you all have your partners. My partner was Dr. McCoy, who's in his 70s. And I remember at one point, we're going towards the water cannon, and I could see the spray of water laced with blue. And I'm saying to him, Uncle Ronnie, Dr. McCoy, we should go away because of the water cannon. He said, no, why are we so intimidated so easily here? Why are we so cowardly? He said, in other countries, they run towards the water cannons. Let's run towards the water cannons, he says to me. And I said to him, because they're laced with blue chemicals. And he said, no, doesn't matter. And he ran. So of course I ran with him. I ran after him. Not because I wanted to, because he just said enough is enough.
The pictures, the visuals, the sounds that I've seen on YouTube that people have shared on Facebook kind of affected me. I didn't go for it. I wanted to, but again, the fear. I was very angry with myself. Why didn't I go? Because my friends were all there. And the word was called Iklim. What kind of movements would we do? Like there's specific movements where they all were walking together, you know, hand in hand, really strong, because the stronger you hold each other, the better it doesn't fall apart. Symbols of strength.
I cover up more than you think. They say nothing. Bernarda, I don't want to talk about this anymore because I'm afraid of what you'll do. But don't be too sure. Bernarda Alba is a metaphor for the state. So the house is Spain, and he's looking at this idea of this place which has sealed itself up and is living in a very oppressed state. But actually the people who oppress the place are they themselves. The mother is the most oppressive, domineering mother. She doesn't allow her daughters to go out of the house. The father has just died and she says 8 years of mourning. You will not leave the house for 8 years. These are young women. They want to go out, they want to meet men, they want to get married, but she says it's immoral, you know. So in this way, it's about how the state can oppress you, but how you yourself then will oppress each other. You know, just a year and a half or 2 years after Operation Lalang, and so that atmosphere in the country was still very oppressive. And this was a time before the internet. I remember our then Information Minister, Muhammad Rahmat, tried to even ban fax machines because he didn't want information coming in that he couldn't control. It's about religion. You know, I think this is where our problems are stemming from at the moment, because religion is being used for political ends and for political gain. There's so much energy being expended on issues like whether or not we can use the word Allah, for example.
I mean, Allah issue, right? I really think, right, if nobody brought this up in the press, do you think that a majority, you know, more than 10, 15% of people would sit around and saying, you know, I think this is really a problem? Nobody, you know.
I think, though, probably it's stemming from corruption, that there is such endemic corruption in this country that in order to hang on to power, the political elite have to use whatever tactics, whatever strategies they can find to stay in power.
If you cannot use the race issue or the religion issue and you have to work it out based on meritocracy and all the rest of it, it would have been better for the entire country that way.
I think we would be happily united if only people would stop banging us against one another. It becomes one of those, like, you know, batu api kind of things, right?
Why do we need the batu api here so much?
No, we don't. It keeps people in power.
We are so busy with our political machinations.
It's like how gun manufacturers like war. You know, when Kajang came across and all that, I was like, what are they doing?
What are they doing?
I mean, to me, it was they crossed the line, right? And I really started to question myself, you know, how big is the difference are we talking about here? Is it, you know, we overthrow PN at all costs, no matter what, you know, the ends justify the means and that sort of thing. And I started to think, like, maybe not. And, you know,
the reason why the Chinese are now trying to be in politics and everything is because we shut down the tin mines. Before, you can keep all the Chinese buggers in the tin mines working, dredging, they wear the coolie hat. It's a good place for them, you know. But this modern Chinese class, they're very obsessed, you know, with human rights and, you know, other kinds of unnecessary things.
people are generally disengaged from politics. They see politics as something as being outside of their spheres, you know, considered very dirty stuff, very unpleasant, very, you know, undignified almost. Sometimes they don't see it as something that they can influence. I think that is a little bit of a myth, and it's a little bit of what politicians want you to think, because the more you think that, the more they are given free rein to do whatever they want. In Malaysia, I think there's a lot of culture of like criticizing, you know, being a bit of an armchair critic. And this is a problem because politicians oftentimes don't really care what people say. They only care how you vote. They want you to think that you don't have much influence on the political process. They want you to think that you're disempowered, that you're disenfranchised, that, you know, it's something that's separate from you. People often don't like the idea of joining a political party. The problem with that is that it becomes, your ability to influence who runs the country and who makes the decisions is lessened by that much. Race in Malaysia has been a problem for a very long time. You always hear stories about older Malaysians talking about how it was a lot, people got along a lot easier back in the day.
Everyone mixes together, everyone makes jokes, cracks by each other, but nothing was ever deemed to be malicious or hateful. I am Indian, Burmese, Portuguese, French, Chinese.
My mother is from Kajang, my father from Ayakro.
My wife is Portuguese, Chinese, Dutch,
My popo from Canton province, my appachi from Madras, my tata from Kerala,
and a whole bunch of stuff.
and my nene moyang from Java.
So what does that make my kids? Malaysian.
I mean, I was never really aware of race until I came back to Malaysia and suddenly everything was about race. So people always ask me, what's YB? Is he Malay? I'm like, Is he Indian? What? He's a human being. Okay, I remember the story many years ago. I did a play called From Table Mountain to Telok Intan. And it was about this woman from South Africa.
I watched that.
Yeah. She was a Cape Malay from South Africa. All the odds were stacked against her. She wasn't white, so she didn't get any of the benefits of apartheid. And she had to live with her father because he was dark-skinned. Her grandmother could live in a white-skinned neighborhood. So it's a very complex system, which is you're pulling apart actually race-based politics to an extreme, ridiculous level.
Yeah.
Now, she eventually left that because she couldn't live in that absurdity and she moved to Australia. But in Australia, as luck would have it, she meets her husband, who's Malaysian. She comes to Malaysia, she discovers because she's a Cape Malay that suddenly she's on the opposite side of this racial spectrum. And she gets all the privileges. She goes to a bank to get a bank loan and the bank manager says to her, oh, just to fill in this box which says race, because since you're Bumiputra, you will get this discount. And she says, why will I get it? And so the bank manager, who's Chinese, explains to her, oh, just tick this box and you'll get this discount. And she refuses. She just point blank refuses. And she says, I left South Africa, she says, because I had to tick that box and I didn't get. Why should I come here now, tick the box and get?
The stories I hear now is that in school canteens, for example, even the Chinese kids and Indian kids don't sit together.
My peers, probably have hardly any Malay friends or things like that.
We've gone wrong somewhere, right?
The main political parties in Malaysia are all race-based, and I think that has a very, very direct effect. Everything becomes about race. All the debates, all the issues become framed in a racial manner. That has done a lot in polarizing the country. I'll go ahead and make the bold and simplistic statement. I'll say that if you were today disband permanently all the race-based parties in Malaysia, I give it 10 to 15 years max. Nobody will talk about race anymore. It's done. Nobody will fight about it. Like this polarization, which it's happening in our lifetimes. People who used to be our friends, now you're like 10, 15 years, reverse. That's my crazy prediction.
I can drink to that. I'd like to see that happen.
I was in Las Vegas for a work exhibition, and I had two colleagues of mine with me, right? A Malay guy and a Chinese guy. Believe it or not, so typical, right?
Right, nice.
Yeah. So we were in a cab, and we were going down the street, right, heading to the exhibition center. Taking the sights, wow, Bellagio on the left, Planet Hollywood, Little Paris on the right, and the cab driver looked at us, and we were talking in Malay, bahasa. And the cab driver, he's Asian-looking guy. Hey, you guys, you must be from Malaysia. Straight on, no, boom. And we looked at each other, we were so surprised. And we asked him, are you Malaysian? He's like, no, not me. I traveled so many countries. Only one place I remember in my life where you can see 3 different-looking guys speak the same language and have a good time.
Yeah, those are beautiful moments.
And I was like,
Definitely.
and
It's
we
a
look at each
lovely
other,
story.
and
Suddenly
wow.
She had a similar experience years ago. We were in Tokyo and I went there to do a theatre production. There was myself, there was Kok Man, who is a Chinese theatre director, Namron, who is a Malay theatre director and writer, and we were doing a collaboration together. But in the collaboration, my piece was in English, Namron's was in Malay, and Kok Man's was in Chinese. And this Japanese audience watching this one piece of theatre, 1.5 hours, in one language after the other, and then meeting us all later, where we were all talking in a mixture of English, Malay, and Chinese, and just saying, you're all from the same country. And they thought it was an international festival. Right?
In fact, in 1956, Tun Razak, who was the second Prime Minister, he actually talked about how they would eradicate the whole idea of difference, and they would achieve a whole Malaysian identity in 1 decade. 50 years later, we're still debating these issues. Things have changed so much from what the intentions of our founding fathers were. We do not dialogue about our past. We prefer to sweep it under a rug, or we use it almost like a threat, a constant threat of do this or else. As I said, it's like a marriage. And it's like a prenuptial, right?
His latest work that he did at the installation work, it's a marriage dais. I think it's a brilliant idea, right? The idea that you enter into a marriage alliance with each other. In 1957, that's what we did. We all got married. You're embarking on an adventure with somebody else. But along the way, there've been fights, there've been misunderstandings. What do? You keep going forward. And I like how he put these two images of his parents when they were first married together and how they're looking at each other, and they're so full of love. And then he has more recent portraits of them and they're just looking out. They're not really looking at each other anymore. And so we're at that point now in 2014. We've become a married couple who, and we're having problems.
We have to find a way to deal with our histories, to talk about it, to dialogue about it, without getting angry and defensive. And this is what happened in the 60s in Germany, was when people started questioning. The young people asked their forefathers, their fathers and their grandfathers, father or grandfather, what did you do in the war? Right? Because of course after that no one talked about it for 10, 15 years until the 60s, because it was too taboo, it was too horrible what they'd done, right? If everyone says nobody knew about the camps, so who manned the camps? Everyone in Germany must know someone who was at the camps, but no one would talk about it. In the 60s, it began to change, this whole idea of facing up to your history, and I think we're ready for that. I think we're ready to talk about things like this, or maybe we're not, but I wish we were. I think it's much more healthy for us to be able to debate it, and then to be told, because we accept the fact that we are pendatang, but for how much longer?
Get the cannon!
The play is really about how much we conform. If you're given a set of instructions from somebody, do you follow them out? And why do you not follow them out? Acting is a good metaphor, because as an actor you're given a script and you're told you have to read everything in this and you have to perform according to this script. Now we as citizens can think it's the same thing. We are given a sort of national narrative and we have to obediently follow this narrative. And you go to school, you go to university, you get a job. These are the narratives which we feel are imposed on us and given to us from the time we're very young. But why? Why do we feel we need to follow this narrative? Why can't we toss the script aside and say, well, actually, I'm going to do this instead?
My degree is in teaching, My degree is in TESOL. And when I remember this so clearly, when we came back, they were going to change the thing that we want to teach critical thinking. That was the government's view, lah. And I remember the official came to our Maktab Perguruan, and I said, sorry, you really want us to teach critical thinking? He was like, yes. I was like, you don't even allow the parents of these children to watch what show they want to watch without censoring. Let's be clear on this. If you want them to be drones, just say so.
Yeah,
we can do it.
Yeah.
But if you want them to be critical thinkers, are you prepared to face the music or not? Because then they will be critically, and they'll be critical of you.
But then also there's the other set of people that are still just kind of comfortable with being told what to do. At Flatland, at the end of the show, there were feedbacks on, please write what you feel. Not just how's the show? Yeah. Some drew pictures, some just drew a dot, some said, I don't understand, I need to come again. I'll see you guys on so and so and so. Are you intrigued by anything that happens around you, or are you intrigued by this person? Have you developed a passion for something? And that's the problem I see in a lot of children nowadays. They don't know how to respond.
What is that Malaysia? What is that Malaysia?
I love the country for what it has made me. I love the fact that there's still very strong beliefs and depths in culture and tradition.
That's the remarkable thing about this country. It has huge possibilities for a very hybrid culture and with very distinctive separate cultures, not just an occasional minority.
My Malaysia is where instinctively I have 30-year-old relationships with everything, from the longkang outside my house, to my friends, to family, to food.
I often think about Malaysia the same way I think about family. You don't choose where you're born and you don't choose who you're born to. But I think I've really lucked out in both regards. I have a great family, and I think Malaysia is a great place.
I believe, we are exactly where we're supposed to be. So if you ask me, can I imagine myself, had I been born somewhere else, of course that would be my home. But no, I was born here. So stop telling me to get out.
Why would I want to run away? There's nothing. I mean, the world's so small now. If I wanted to go away, I just go away.
We should all just concentrate on moving forward and not let negativity poison what's good about Malaysia right now.
We want to give a lot more. We just don't know how.
I believe that the younger minds of Malaysia will finally come to a place where this country will be as great as it was.
Saying I'm proud to be Malaysian is as I'm proud to have a nose. And this is there. I'm proud of Malaysians who have done well. So more of us got to do good things lah. More of us got to be successful lah. And then we'll all be proud of each other.
My generation tended to talk about it. Your generation, I think, is beginning to try and do something about it. And that's how change will come.
As long as I'm still standing on this, we call it Tanah Air lah, I want to contribute as much as I can, creating a fresh breed of young people who start thinking, to really start thinking and question things.
The question of whether there's hope for Malaysia or not in the long run, I think it's really a question of choice.
Now people are learning that voices are actually stronger and louder than they ever thought.
I have a lot of faith in Malaysians. They're a good bunch of people. And I don't believe in trying to tell people what to do or berate people and scold them and say you must behave like this, you must behave like that.
But really for me, it's really about trying to find beautiful things. There is beautiful things in making people laugh, and rather than making them cry. And it's very beautiful making people cry because I think they connect with the tragedy that we're all inhabiting in our lives, personal lives and in our political lives.
I guess I see Malaysia as an angsty teenager, because I think in terms of how old or mature we are as a nation, we're still pretty young. And if you look at all the other developed nations, they went through periods of really bad stuff as well. There was slavery and religious persecution. You had civil war, you had racism.
There's a quote I often think about, in the writings that I do. It's a Martin Luther King quote. I think it says, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." And I really do believe this. I think in the grand scheme of things, the world tends to improve.
The hope is always there that we can see what happened to the other countries and try and learn from it and try and avoid it altogether.
Nevertheless, it's our job to see it happens as quickly as possible.
Nice chatting with everybody.
It's been great.
Because stay in your own kampung, you don't see people, you don't know what they're doing. And actually, I know people vaguely, and I don't really talk to them. When I talk to him, it's just he's there. So I just want to say a toast.
Yeah, cheers.
To
Lovely evening.
a lovely evening.